It's Iowa week. The last regular season game of the 2025 season, it went by whoosh. It always does. It seems like the off season is so long, and then the season gets here, and it's just bang, 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 and here we are at the end. Coming into the Iowa game at 7-4, and 8-4 would sound a hell of a lot better than 7-5. And I think Iowa can be had. I know there's a lot of people that probably are penciling this in as a loss. But I'm going to admit something. I probably shouldn't, but I watch a fair amount of Iowa football because I hate myself. And they're not as strong on the lines as they've been in years past. In the years past, I think they've been able to control games with their lines. And I don't think the other thing is they don't have a Kaleb Johnson. I think that was his name last year, the back that beat us, the NFL level back. They have good running backs. They have good offensive linemen, good defensive linemen, but they're not great. Their offense is more, I'd say, varied than it's been in years past. Marc Gronowski, their quarterback, he can make some play. He can make horrible plays. He sails the ball sometimes. But one of the interesting things about him as a quarterback is when they need something to happen, he suddenly turns on some internal power. And they make it happen. And I think that's the dangerous thing about their offense is they suddenly can turn on, Gronowski can turn on something and suddenly they're just moving the ball very well. Never more evident in the last game against Michigan State where I think they were down 17-10 in the fourth quarter and came back to win 20-17. Everything about their body language, Iowa, just showed that they were going to win that game. You could just watch them. And Matt Rule says, they're comfortable in close games, and they are. They're amazing at it. They're perfectly fine winning with a field goal. They're perfectly fine being in these games where they're just slugfests and terrible to watch and horrifying. And then they, pull it out at the end. And you could tell that watching the Michigan State game. Like I said, body language, Gronkowski turned on some internal power, probably because they're in league with the devil. That's what I think of Iowa. We'll get into that. Somebody asked me, why do you hate Iowa so much? And I'll get into that in a few minutes after we're done with the offense and defense. Nebraska, Matt Rule also said that we want to play loose and free. I think those were the words he used. And I'm going to say the same thing I did before Penn State. Are we going to see a loose and free offense, or are we going to see the same thing we saw in the first half against Penn State, where the offense doesn't try anything more than 10 yards downfield and passing? Where our plays are safe. In years past, we've lost this game because of turnovers or mistakes. Iowa sits around with 10 points, waits for us to make a mistake, and we do. We hand them the game. Last year, Dylan Rail, a fumble late in the game. Free gift, field goal, loss, horrifying. Even after we played 99 out of 100 plays correctly, 2 plays cost us the field goal on I think Kaleb Johnson, 72-yard run. But that's what that guy was capable of doing. I don't know if they have a back capable of doing that this year, although they do against our run defense because our run defense sucks. Okay, offense. Are we just gonna walk around the field? Are we gonna throw these dinky little 2-yard passes? And hope that they turn into 10, 15-yard gains? Are we going to throw the ball down the field? Because, if you try a 40-yard pass, a 30-yard pass, which I'm pretty sure TJ Lateef is capable of executing, and it gets picked off, it's kind of like a punt, which would be better than turning the ball over, fumbling it in our own backfield, or getting a sideways pass or screen pass to the side, picked off, and returned for a touchdown. Iowa's greatest strength is that, Weegan, their punt returner. Michigan State, for some reason, punted to him because they're morons. If we punt to him, I realize our punter, Archie Wilson, still trying to figure out how to play American football, but do not be punting to this guy. Don't test that stuff. Don't go, our special teams is going to outwit him, because that's how you're going to lose. I said last week against Penn State, it'd be nice special teams would show up. It'd be nice, really, really nice if special teams would show up against Iowa. Maybe block a punt. That'd be kind of cool. take away one of their special attributes. Defense, John Butler needs to figure out how to stop the run in this game somehow. He did some things against Penn State last week, but then, he play zone on the back end, and then they just left like 20-yard wide areas open in the field. So it was terrible all around. We need to do better this week. Otherwise, we're going to lose. I am guessing that a lot of you penciled this game in as a loss or did that this week after the loss to Penn State. And it would be nice to pick up win against Iowa. Just to, go into the season, go into the bowl game, go into the next few weeks feeling a lot better about 8-4 and not 7-5 and having to lose to those sorry bastards again. So why do I hate Iowa? Well, I'll tell you. I hate Iowa because they're everything we're not. All right? They settle. They're perfectly fine with Kirk Ferentz never winning a championship in anything. And I see this. Kirk Ferentz, a great coach. He's not a great coach. He's a good coach. He's almost stubbornly refused to become a great coach by not doing anything modern with his offense when he could have done this. Could have done it at any time. He recently, I think it was it this year, became the most winning coach in Big Ten history. He passed Woody Hayes. What did Woody Hayes do? Woody Hayes won 5 national championships, and he won 13 Big Ten titles. Yet that's a great coach. Kirk Ferentz, good coach. Phil Parker, great coach. Thank God Phil Parker stayed around for years. Otherwise, Kirk probably would have been fired years ago. But they settle for this stuff, and we don't settle for it. Maybe, I don't know, I suppose there's a lot of people who go, oh, you'd love to have Iowa's record. Yeah, I would have loved to have Iowa's record. It was continue to go up and trying for championships. This idea that you're okay with being good but not great, who stomachs that crap? Apparently Iowa fans. Now, I've heard some of them don't like it, but apparently not enough to get Kirk tossed. The other reason I hate Iowa is this constant moral superiority shit they throw at people. They have this great tradition, the wave to the kids, And it's kind of nice. Sick children in a hospital, everybody waves to them. But Iowa has taken this and they've turned it into virtue signaling. You constantly see their media people on Twitter places or people, they didn't wave hard enough. They weren't looking. They didn't wave. And what kind of people do that with children? Iowans. That's the Iowa fans. That's who. Last year they complained that Matt Rule walked through their pregame practice. And when you looked at the video, Matt Rule was walking laps around the field. But Iowa turned it into this great offense. Because that's what they do. They set people up as, we're better than everybody. We act better than everybody. We're smarter than everybody. Oregon won their game against them at Kinnick this year. And at the end of the game, the Oregon players went over to the sideline and either they wanted to celebrate with their own few Oregon fans, or they taunted the Iowa fans. And the Iowa fans responded with throwing, I think, beer and chucking stuff on the field at them. And then I saw some Iowa fans on Twitter saying, our teams would never do that. Apparently completely forgetting Keith Duncan in, 2019, making the game-winning field goal and running down the field taunting Nebraska fans, which, you know what, I'm fine with. I personally probably would have been flipping everybody off to make sure I got the most maximum out of it and got into trouble for it. But he won the game. You got to do that kind of stuff. I don't think there's any, oh my God, it's not sportsmanlike. It's not some great offense, but you throw beer at players out of the stands and you throw shit out of the stands at the players? What the hell? I could go on. I think their strength and conditioning coach got dismissed because of racial discrimination. They had to pay out a massive lawsuit for that. They've had to pay out massive lawsuits for sexual discrimination, things like that. There's in no world that Iowa should be acting superior to anybody. And then that's the things that bug me is they purposely do stuff to antagonize other people, and then they bitch about it when they respond. And I just think it's trashy. I think we should get an edge in doing that. I noticed that Matt Rule said, when they asked him about Iowa, he was really respectful and said that Philip Parker was one of the greatest coaches and he had great respect for their coaching. And I mean, trash talk any? It's almost like we're afraid of that, afraid of going into this game. The guy that, again, if we die, we die, says that, and then we want to play loose and free. I would have said something like, Kirk, well, like I just did. Kirk Ferentz is a good coach. He's not a great coach. Because let's not kid ourselves with this stuff. And if we lose to Iowa, which, I'm guessing, but we probably will. That's what we do. We lose by a field goal at the end of the game. Most of the time. That they're going to, you poor bastards have to live around Iowa people, or you should move the hell away from them. And we should put up some kind of border thing in Nebraska to keep them sons of bitches out. I live in Minnesota. You know what? Here's another thing. You can be at any Minnesota sporting event, because I live in Minnesota, and yell, who hates Iowa? And everybody's your best friend instantly. Why? Because everybody hates Iowa. You do that in Wisconsin. Now, with USC and Oregon joining the Big Ten, I'm guessing that their fans, if they've experienced how miserable those sons of bitches in Iowa are, they would do the same thing. Who hates Iowa? We hate Iowa. Everybody together because everybody hates Iowa for good reason. All right, so what's going to happen in this game? It's at home in Nebraska. Nebraska fans need to bring their energy. It sounds like it might snow. That'd be fun. I'm guessing Nebraska needs, let's say, 21 points. We're going to need more than that if they get a special teams touchdown. So, again, we need 28 points. And we need to hold Iowa to, let's see, 17 to 21 points. This didn't work against Penn State when I said that we needed to hold them to 21. We kind of lost everything in the first half, lost our heads. We need to keep our heads in this game. And, we need to be comfortable like Iowa is and playing a really tight game, because that's probably what it's going to be. It's going to be some kind of football that nobody really wants to watch. And we're going to say who wins, see who wins. Remember the Gronowski guy, quarterback? I think the key to the game is him. I think getting him into a position where he can make mistakes is going to be key. And picking off one of his errant passes or two of them would be nice. I don't think they fumble very much. And the key to that is going to be this. Matt Rule said we missed 8 defensive assignments in a row on some plays against Penn State. We can't do that against Iowa. We can't make those mistakes. We can't allow big zone coverage like completions. I don't even know what to think about this game. I guess we're just going to watch it all together and be happy or sad. I think I've said I've done about 38 takes with this thing. 8-4 would sound a hell of a lot better than 7-5. Do I think Nebraska can win? Yeah, we can win. Do I think we will? Yeah, why not? Why not? Why not us? Instead of those people that are in league with the devil. I talked about that Gronkowski kid's internal. It's because Iowa's in league with the devil. It's just like you know what they are? I'll tell you what, at the end of that Michigan State game, they knew they were going to win, just like a serial killer who lets his victim crawl to the door and let them have the hope of escape. And then just, that's it. They end them. That's what the end of that Michigan State game was like. Okay, that's enough for now. I hope you're all having a good week. Happy Thanksgiving. Go Big Red, and fuck Iowa.